Hello and welcome to the second module from the kitchen to grocery session. In this module, we'll cover steps 5 through 7 of the From Kitchen to Grocery checklist, as well as the wrap-up checklist and additional resources. If you have not already done so, please watch Module 1 to reference steps 1 through 4 of the From Kitchen to Grocery checklist. Step 5, Nutrition Labeling, Shelf Life, and Packaging. There are many retailer and consumer requirements that your product must meet before it can be sold on product shelves. One major requirement is product testing, also known as the Process Authority Review, or the PAR. This will measure the water activity and the amount of moisture in a product. Microbes love moisture and can result in yeast and mold. Acid in foods determine the type of processing you may need for your product. They're broken down into low acid foods, acid foods, acidified foods, which is acid that is added to a product. And if you're not sure about your product, you may need to purchase a pH meter to test it. You'll also need to send in a sample of your product for testing. And you must have an official PAR letter to give to your MDARD representative when you give them your SOP plan. Note that each PAR test can take anywhere from several weeks to a few months, often ranging from 4 to 8 weeks, with some institutions indicating anywhere from 2 to 3 months as a general time frame. So you want to move as quickly as possible to get your recipes and products finalized so that you can send them out for testing and that you can get your products on the shelves in a timely manner. As previously mentioned, foods can either be described as low acid, acidified, or acid foods. Low acid foods are foods with a pH of anything greater than 4.6. Note that these are high risk of foodborne illnesses and will require special processing, including hermetically sealed or airtight containers, thermal canning and retort, which is steam and pressure, and all of this is to reducing the risk of foodborne illnesses. Examples include applesauce, canned green beans, and shelf-stable broths. Acidified foods are foods with a pH greater than 4.6 and acid is added. Again, these also will require special processing, including hermetically sealed or airtight containers, and will be used to be reducing the risk of foodborne illnesses. Examples include pickles, salsas, tropical fruits, and puddings. And finally, acid foods, which naturally has a pH of anything lower than 4.6. They're acidic, so microorganisms cannot grow, meaning they are safe from botulism, and may not need PAR services. Examples will include barbecue sauces, jams, jellies, juices. Some fermented products may be included, such as kombucha and kimchi, and can be processed to be shelf-stable. More things to consider are your shelf life. What is it and why is it important? Shelf life is the period during which a product remains fit for its intended use, maintaining acceptable quality and safety. It's influenced by factors like storage temperature, humidity, oxygen, and packaging, with different date labels indicating quality, best by, or safety, used by. Retailers will want a long shelf life. 7 days typically will not work for most retailers. A longer shelf life also saves you time from replenishing stock. These will have added costs, as shelf life testing may be hundreds of dollars per product. And note that refrigerated and frozen food shelf life varies from product to product. You'll also need a nutrition facts panel, which is required to sell wholesale and must be the 2016 version as shown here on the right. Your recipe must be finalized, and all ingredients must be provided by weight. Once final, send your recipe to a lab for analysis to receive an image of a label for your package. Note that you will need a food scale for this step. The time it takes to get a nutrition facts panel can vary from a few days to a couple of weeks, depending on the complexity of your product and the lab you use. For one common service, it is about 7 to 10 days after receiving the order form and payment, while other labs may be faster or slower. Along with your nutrition facts panel, you will need to look at the overall label of your product and must include several components to be retail ready. You'll need a common name of the product or a statement of identity. Example, cereal. You'll need your product's name. Example, Jamie Puff Pops. You'll need the name and address of the maker or manufacturer. You'll need that nutrition facts panel, and you'll need the quantity in the lower 1/3 of the label, often at the bottom of the package. For nutrition labeling, it must include several components to be retail ready. You'll need your ingredient list in descending order. And yes, your secret sauce can include just the general term spices. Again, your recipe is your trade secret, so you don't need to list out everything altogether, but each lab will tell you what you need to put on your ingredients list. You'll need a sell-by date or a best-by date. You'll have to have a meaningful code or a lot code. A lot code or lot number is a unique alphanumeric identifier assigned by a manufacturer to a specific batch of products processed, produced, or packaged under the same conditions. This is to be able to identify any potential batches that have been contaminated and issue any recalls that might be needed. In some cases, the sell-by date can be the code. For your nutrition label, you also need to be considering allergy labeling. There are 8 most common allergies found in food. They cause 90% of illness and must be listed on your label. They include wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, egg, soy, fish, and shellfish. You need to make sure it has clearly labeled contains this allergen. You also may want to consider precautionary labeling. For example, manufactured in a facility that processes peanuts. This is a way to ensure that you are covered in case of any cross-contamination that may occur during the processing. Products that include meat have different requirements per the USDA, so make sure that you are talking to your MDAR representative to make sure your label is in compliance. Now moving on to the package itself. Your product packaging can make your product stand out to buyers, but it also needs to be functional. Your package can show your brand's personality, and trends may impact your packaging choices over time. For example, you might really like having a glass container, and it might be the one thing that people like now, but that doesn't mean it's going to be sustainable over the long term. It needs to follow regulations, meet industry standards, guidelines, and help extend the shelf life. The food industry has specific standards for some products. Be sure to find out before making a purchase. And also remember, retailers may only allow certain sizes to fit on shelves. So make sure that you are doing your due diligence and research and while looking at your competitors to see what sizes typically are on the shelves. The packaging you choose needs to make sense for your budget. Plan for packaging to account for 10% of your product costs, and look at costs of production, then packaging and other materials. Again, you might really like a glass container, but that might be a more expensive option than using plastics. Once you scale, economy of scale will reduce the per unit cost of the packaging, and you can order a higher number at a lower price per unit cost. Some questions to ask yourself about your product packaging. Is it a comparable size to a competitor's or unique in size to stand out? Is it a more grab-to-go option for that product? Or is it something that's going to stay on the shelf for a longer period of time? Will it need to be able to withstand heat treatment that may be used for acidified foods? Will the package you choose add costs for higher weight packaging with shipping and distribution? Again, if you use something like glass, that is going to be a much heavier per unit weight than a plastic container. If your business is concerned with its impact on the environment, is the packaging recycled? Is it degradable? Can it be compostable? And does your product settle while on the shelf? Do you need to find an opaque package to be appealing to the customer? As previously discussed at the end of Step 3, Safety and Licensing, your packaging practices will also need a Standard for Operating Procedures, or an SOP, which again is a detailed written instructions for daily operation. You'll need to include the name of the person who wrote it, the approval, so the person who signed off on the SOP, the date it was written, the name of persons responsible for carrying out the SOP, the frequency, or how often the SOP should be followed, all the detailed procedures. You'll need to have a record and how it will be documented, and correction measures. If an SOP fails, detail how you'll correct this issue. Step 6, marketing, sales channels, and meeting buyers. Prepare to sell and how to get noticed. What you'll need is a good marketing strategy. How you will tell your future customers about your product. You'll need a sell sheet, a pricing sheet, a pitch deck, the pitch itself, and knowing your numbers. Knowing your numbers in examples of sizes, volume, number per case, and retail price for a wholesaler, and samples of your product. Marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy will need to have objectives. Define your objectives for your marketing plan. Is it to increase brand awareness, enter new markets, decrease the customer acquisition costs? You'll need to also have a customer segmentation. Knowing who your customer is a good first step to help determine the best strategies to reach them. You may have more than one target customer, and you'll need to know all of their different needs. Your brand positioning and messaging. Setting your business apart from your competitors to build preference for you among your target audience. Includes conveying your brand values, missions, and beliefs. Packaging. A book is judged by its cover. This is everything from logos to color to size, shape, and use of package of your product comes in. Promotional tactics. Marketing activities to reach your target markets. For example, a website with SEO, content marketing, social media marketing, paid advertising like Google Ads, networking and association memberships, print materials like flyers and mailers, and strategic partnerships. A sell sheet is a full color information sheet about your product or products, and it will include the business name and logo, photos of the product in each unit and in a case, product attributes such as shelf stable, weight, package type, and units per case, your main selling points like gluten-free, sugar-free, low sodium, etc., your contact information. It may include UPC symbols, and it either can be one-sided or a front and back. You'll also need a pricing sheet. It'll also have your business name and logo, photos of your product, the product name, the weight, package dimensions, case count, case price, and cases per pallet. It'll also have your wholesaler price and recommended retail price, and will include the contact info, including social media. A pricing sheet is the best way for a wholesaler or distributor to understand how much it will cost to bring your product on board, and is a very important step in order to get into a retail space. A pitch deck. A pitch deck is used to pitch your product. It is usually between 8 to 12 pages and is organized based on your audience and adds specific details related to the audience. Is it a buyer or an investor? You want to make sure you have concise points, not a lot of lengthy text. It has to be compelling and easy to act on. And it has to be visually consistent and appealing. And most importantly, it showcases your brand's personality. There are a lot of no or low-cost templates available online. What to include in a pitch deck? You'll need a cover letter, a business overview, a product overview, such as the FDA labels, all your packagings and ingredients, nutritional callouts, such as low sodium, gluten-free, soy-free, your category, and your unique value proposition, all your marketing support, your merchandising support, the competitive overview, and your contact information. Now, preparing your pitch. A pitch is a 60 to 90-second summary of you and your business. It is clear, simple, and practice, like an elevator speech. A pitch should include a hook specific to the listener, again, a buyer versus investor. It should have emotion. Your storytelling from the heart, so add humor, add personal stories. Your name and your product name. Your why are you operating this business? The problem and solution. And if needed, included where your product fits in the store. Does it go in the deli, a seafood counter, or bakery? Or does it go in the sauce or snack aisle? And know your numbers. A pitch should not include numbers, sizes, volume, number per case, retail price, but you need to know them. Be ready to answer any of your buyer's questions. Do your research, knowing the buyer. Who are your competitors in the store? When do they meet with suppliers? Do they have an online system? For example, Meyer uses RangeMe, and others you might work with just a buyer for that each department, like Plum Market. You'll need to know about your packaging. The buyer will expect to see samples of your product and talk about how your product fits in the store's model. Setting the price can be a daunting task, but remember, your prices do not need to be comparative to national brands, but be comparative to prices of other specialty products. Once you've figured out your product's cost, you should know how much you need to charge to be profitable. You will often use the 40% rule, which is ingredients, packaging, etc., is the 40% of the product price. So, if you were planning to set the shelf price to $10 per unit, $4 per unit is the maximum cost to produce your product and can be broken down into $2 for packaging and labeling and $2 for ingredients. Now, if you go through a distributor, they will take about a 30% cut. But remember, in the beginning, you will be your own distributor. So if we go through the same rule, if it's $4 per unit to make your product, times 30% equals $1.20. You add that to the $4, and so you would have to sell your price at $5.20 per unit to sell your product to a distributor. Now, once you go through a distributor and get your product on the shelves, expect 25 to 30% markup at each point on the supply chain. So, if we take that $5.20 times 25%, that will equal $6.50 per unit, and that's your distributor markup. Once it goes from distributor to retailer, we'll take $6.50 times 30% to get $8.45 per unit, and that will be your retail markup. And most times, retailers will mark it up even a little bit more, so we're looking at a retail price to the customer of about $8.99. Another marketing tactic to get your product noticed by consumers is through in-store demos. Demos are key to starting off. They are the sales marketing strategy for your business. This is oftentimes, if you're new to this specific retail store, this will be the first time the consumer will be testing your product. So you want to make sure that they can see it, know what they can use with it, and how to prepare it. Some retailers may require demos to become a supplier in their stores. And if they do offer demos, ask to get on a retailer's demo schedule. But consider if you will need to hire a demonstration company. The retailer may suggest who to use. And some makers work anywhere from 40 to 60 hours per month running demos. So how does that fit into your schedule? Are you going to have to hire someone to do the demos for you? Or would a demonstration company be the better option? Where to sell your product? Farmers markets are a great place to start sales, build your customer base, and test new products. It is also a great place to be able to get customer feedback week to week about whether or not they like the size, what they like using it for, if they like a new product or not. This is a really great way to get that initial customer feedback so that you can go up to scalability later on. You can also go to retail stores and are what most processors think, but get creative about non-traditional retailers. You could go to traditional grocery stores like a Kroger or a Meijer, but you could also go to specialty stores like a food co-op or a neighborhood store. You could go to farm stands, and you could also sell in tourist shops like cider mills. Another place, institutions, which are buying more and more local foods, but you will need to check with a procurement team. This includes hospitals, universities, and schools. Step 7, capital needs and financing. As all businesses grow, the need for capital grows too. If we look at this graph, we see from the very beginning at the idea stage to the proof of concept to shelf to microregions, regional, and multi-regional. And as you see, we go up that graph, the need for capital will increase the higher along you go in the food chain. Why is capital needed? Capital is needed to successfully launch and survive the valley of death, which occurs after launching a product but before achieving consistent revenue, often marked by low cash flow and high risk of failure, and for growth. It also is required when demand surpasses capacity, which requires increased production and distribution. That could be expanding to more stores, adding a new product or line to your business, or getting to the point where you will need contract manufacturing to keep up with demand. Capital is also needed when growth requires new equipment, a new production space or facility, more personnel, and just overall general working capital. Where does capital come from? Well, first, your operations. You can make money and reinvest it into your company. This is considered an inexpensive capital because you earned it first, akin to spending your savings. But it is slow to accumulate savings, and you might not have what you need when you need it to buy something important. There is an opportunity cost too. You can only spend your savings once before you must save again. There's also funding and financing. You can seek funding or borrow from others and lenders. This is considered expensive capital because you often need to pay it back with some return, usually in the form of interest. Remember, you should not borrow capital unless you have a clear idea of what you're borrowing for, how it will help your business become better, and more importantly, have a clear plan on how to pay it back. Here's a good way to write out exactly what capital you might need to help grow your business. Let's try your logic. If I spend or borrow this amount of money, then my company will be able to do this. Think about hiring or buying equipment, renovating your space, etc. Then, once I have that in place, it'll allow me to do this, which is something I cannot do presently. And once I can do that, it will result in the following new business revenue. Now, is this going to be a one-time increase in revenue? Is it going to be every month, every year? Or will it reduce my current business expenses? Again, is that a one-time reduction? Is it a reduction every month or every year? And then what I can earn and save is this. more than what I would spend. This example helps you gain a clear idea of what you might borrow money for and how it will make your business become better. So here are some examples of financing options that could be beneficial for your business. While each of them have their pros and cons, determining which one is the right fit for your business is going to be key in furthering the growth of your business. The two that are most common are traditional business loans, which is traditional debt that capitalizes growth. The uses will include anything from equipment, property, construction, and overall working capital, and lines of credit. But they are limited and specified loan amounts accessed as needed and repaid immediately or over a pre-specified period of time. What investors consider. Traditional factors include cash flow, collateral, character, credit history, contributions from the business owners, and conditions, the industries and the trends. Other factors, the owner and team experience, your competitive advantage, the growing customer demand, any scalability model, available distribution channels, quick responses to questions, and your mission impact. What traditional lenders request. Now, this is a very good overview of what you might need, but each lender may have their own unique requirements, but having these will also speed up the process. So, you need a short pitch deck that provide an overview of your business. Now, some will require a business plan. You'll need your EIN number and social security number, the name of owners of the business, your legal structure, sole proprietorship, LLC, or etc. All business information, such as the date you opened and the number of employees, any current business loans, and the creditor and loan balance, if any. The total funding needed, so the overall amount of money you need. You'll also need to break it down by how much will come from the business owner or other sources, and how much is being requested from this specific lender. You also need to have the purpose of the loan. It needs to be a breakdown of the total project cost and the budget. You'll need personal financial statements, which will include all your assets and liabilities, your income and monthly payments, copy of a driver's license, your bank statements for 3 months, both the personal and business federal income tax returns for the last 2 to 3 years, a business balance sheet and a profit loss statement for the last 2 to 3 years, the current year-to-date business balance sheet and profit loss statement, a forecasted profit and loss statement for a 3-year minimum, and the business and entity paperwork, such as articles of incorporation and organization. Right? That concludes the checklist for the from kitchen to grocery. And now we will move on to the resources and wrap up. To recap, here's your checklist and where are you on these steps? So remember, step 1 was back to basics, what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Step 2, food safety and licenses. Step 3, the business model, financial management, and team. Step 4, production space and preparing to scale. Step 5, your nutrition label, shelf life and packaging. Step 6, marketing, sales channels, and meeting buyers. And step 7, capital needs and financing. Knowing where you are on this list will help you be able to move through getting from the kitchen to the grocery shelves. And remember, you can always go back to each step to see where you might need to make improvements. Now on to resources. One of the resources that we have here at the Center for Regional Food Systems is what we call the Loan Readiness Toolbox for food and farm businesses, which includes resources for consumer packaged good manufacturers, caterers, restaurants, kitchen incubators, food trucks, and farmers who are ready to monitor and track their financial records and access financing in the next 18 to 24 months. So when we were talking in step 7 about all the various documents you will need to have in order to go out for financing. We have templates in here, everything from being able to write out a business plan, to be able to do financial projections and have a profit and loss statement, amongst other various templates. It will also include tips and tricks on how to be able to get all of those in order and ready to go when you are ready to sit down with a financier. Another resource is something we call the Funding Sources for Food-Related Businesses. This is a digital resource from MSU Center for Regional Food Systems that identifies local, statewide, national, and global opportunities for financial support for farmers, food producers, distributors, food hubs, and other food-related businesses and business assistance providers. This was formerly published in a PDF format, but this is a interactive digital directory that allows the reader to search funding sources by ownership, funding type, business sector, and funding amounts. Thank you for joining me in this session. I hope that you found the modules to be informative and useful, and I wish you all the best on your continued business journey. For more information and other resources, please visit the glmrfbc.msu.edu website.